Welcome to a new story made by Oracle 1. The Code of Silence. The winter of 1943 in London was cold and biting, with grey skies that never seemed to lift and a city scarred by relentless bombings. Amid the clamour and clatter of wartime life, the heart of British intelligence pulsed through walls unseen and rooms unmarked. In one such cramped chamber deep beneath the offices of the Government Code and Cipher School at Bletchley Park, a young woman named Eleanor Sinclair sat alone, her fingers poised above the Morse key, her eyes scanning the flickering lines of encoded messages. At 21, Eleanor was part of a generation of women who had stepped into roles once reserved for men, their youth and sharp intellect a vital asset to the war effort. Her training as a Morse operator was meticulous, her mind trained to sift through tides of interrupted transmissions and discern the truth hidden in the static. But this night would steer her beyond the familiar rhythm of dots and dashes. Across the room, the bulky decoder clattered mechanically as another operator worked, but Eleanor's mind was locked on the sudden, unusual signal that had clicked through the receiver minutes before. It was unlike the usual fleet of administrative messages she had been translating. This was ciphered, but its frequency suggested origin deep within German communications, a style she had rarely seen. She tracked the message, her heart pounding, as each letter resolved into words in German, then into a chilling revelation: an impending operation named Operation Grey Wolf. The details outlined troop movements near Stalingrad, a place where her older brother, Captain Thomas Sinclair, was stationed with the British liaison contingent attached to Soviet forces. Eleanor's hands shook precariously over the key. This could be the intelligence that shifted the fate of so many, but she doubted if anyone else would realize its importance as she had. The possibility entered her mind in a dreadful whisper. What if this message heralded a trap, and Thomas was marching towards his doom? Her thoughts were cut short by the rush of footsteps. Sergeant Matthews approached briskly, his eyes narrowed. "Anything of importance, Sinclair?" Swallowing her hesitation, Eleanor slid a copy of the decoded text across. Operation Grey Wolf. Movement of German divisions towards the city. I believe it's direct intel on the assault near Stalingrad. It could save lives, if we act fast. Matthews examined the paper closely. Where did you find this? In an encrypted channel usually reserved for higher command. The key was outdated, maybe intentionally compromised to mislead, or a leak. Matthews frowned. We need to verify this before passing it on. You know what happened last time with misinformation. Eleanor nodded grimly. The shadow of past errors loomed. Despite the risk, she knew she had to push this through. Thomas's life, among others, balanced on this thread of intercepted data. The next days moved in a blur. Eleanor found herself summoned repeatedly to briefings, the decoded message scrutinized by commanders and cryptanalysts alike. More interceptions confirmed the movement, but with a fuller picture emerging. The Germans planned a pincer movement designed to encircle Allied forces. The operation was born from desperation to win control on the Eastern Front before the impending harsh winter. Eleanor clutched a small locket containing her brother's photograph. Memories of their childhood floods her mind. A spirited boy with a reckless grin who confided in her his plans to serve something greater. Thomas had always been brave, but he was not invincible. She worked tirelessly, often losing sleep, monitoring shifting ciphers and coordinating with codebreakers, piecing together the puzzle of German communications. Each new intercept tightened the noose, or perhaps, as hope flared, indicated a chance to unravel it. Yet, as the days passed, Eleanor began to perceive undercurrents in the cipher traffic, cryptic sub-messages embedded in false loops. It seemed the Germans were aware that their messages were compromised and had fed misinformation deliberately. Was Operation Grey Wolf the real plan, or a ruse? Frightened that relaying this unconfirmed intelligence might lead to disaster, Eleanor debated whether to withhold the transmission. Torn between duty and loyalty, her every instinct screamed to protect her brother, but to what cost? Her internal battle was interrupted by a secretive arrival. A man in a dark overcoat and a low voice who introduced himself simply as Lieutenant Calloway from MI6. His message was stark. We believe German intelligence has planted false messages. Discretion is vital. However, Captain Sinclair's unit may be compromised from the inside. The implication staggered Eleanor. Was there a traitor next to her brother? It seemed the message she had intercepted was perhaps a trap, one designed to draw the Allies into a fatal ambush. Calloway's suggestion was chilling. They needed to keep the intercepted information from her brother's command to prevent panic and confusion, but also to protect Sinclair from possible internal betrayal. The weight of silence pressed down on Eleanor heavily. She was caught in a web where every word could bring salvation or destruction. Every secret whispered in the dark could turn to a dagger. As the encirclement at Stalingrad intensified, Eleanor's resolve hardened. She began coordinating with Soviet codebreakers who confirmed fragments of legitimate German movements pointed to a massive offensive. But they also uncovered records of Soviet double agents, deepening the uncertainty around the loyalties of those in the field. Days turned into nights thick with tension and awaiting decisions that could not be made hastily. Then, a final message came through, less coded, more desperate, a plea from Thomas himself, transmitted via secure channels. Holding position but suspicions of leak. Need confirmation. Trust no one but Eleanor. If this reaches you, beware of shadows close. This cryptic note was both a confirmation and a warning. Eleanor had to act swiftly to get direct messages to her brother without alerting the traitors. Using clandestine channels, she arranged for her own encoded reply. Instructions to move the unit, suspicion of enemy infiltration, and a plea for vigilance. Meanwhile, Eleanor, with Lieutenant Calloway's aid, worked to identify the traitor within the liaison unit. Their investigation led to the chilling discovery that an officer close to Thomas was in communication with the German command, feeding false intelligence and sabotaging defenses. The revelation came just as Operation Grey Wolf was launched. The Germans advanced in overwhelming numbers, expecting to find the Allied forces unprepared. But, thanks to Eleanor's intercepted intelligence and covert warning to Thomas, the unit had repositioned, and the traitor was unmasked and arrested. The battle that ensued was brutal and costly, but the Allied forces, forewarned, managed to sustain their ground longer than expected until Soviet reinforcements arrived. Months later, winter's harsh grip settled over the front lines, and news finally came to London. The siege of Stalingrad was broken. Captain Thomas Sinclair survived, marked by the scars of war but alive. A letter from the battlefield reached Eleanor, its faded ink of balm to her nerves. Eleanor, your courage saved us. The unseen battles you fought in shadows were as fierce as any on the field. Hold on to hope, for from darkness grows the dawn. In the quiet aftermath, Eleanor returned to her duties with a new understanding of the cost of secrets and the power they wielded. The code of silence she kept was not just a matter of security. It was the delicate balance between saving lives and protecting those she loved. Amid the endless tapping of Morse keys and the whispers of clandestine messages, Eleanor Sinclair's story became a silent testament to the unseen heroes of the war. The ones who fought battles with cryptic messages, risking everything so others might live. Like and subscribe for more stories.